Antonio Vivaldi was a famous Italian composer and violinist who lived during the Baroque period. He is known for his energetic music, beautiful violin concertos, and creative use of instruments. Vivaldi was born in Venice, Italy, in 1678. Venice was a city full of art, culture, and music. Vivaldi grew up in this city, and it was here that he learned to love music. His father, who was a violinist, taught him how to play the violin when he was very young. He quickly became very good at playing the violin. As a teenager, he began to write his own music. Vivaldi's music was different from other music of his time. He created beautiful and lively melodies that made listeners feel excited and happy. His music was full of energy and rhythm. One of his most famous works is a set of violin concertos called The Four Seasons. The Four Seasons is a collection of 4 violin concertos, each representing a different season of the year. The music in each concerto matches the feeling of the season. In the Spring Concerto, the music sounds light and fresh, like the beginning of the year. The Summer Concerto has a warm and hot feeling, with fast music that sounds like a thunderstorm. The Autumn Concerto is slow and calm, like the fall season when the leaves change color. Finally, the Winter Concerto is cold and sharp, with fast and icy music. Vivaldi used the violin to tell the story of each season. The Four Seasons is still one of the most famous pieces of classical music today. Vivaldi wrote many other pieces of music, too. He wrote over 500 violin concertos, many of them with different ideas and styles. Some of his concertos were written for more than one violin, creating beautiful harmonies. Vivaldi also wrote music for choirs and orchestras. Many of his compositions were written for specific events or performances. Some of his most famous works were written for the girls at the Ospedale della Pietà, a well-known orphanage in Venice. This orphanage was famous for training young girls to become musicians. Vivaldi worked there for many years and was in charge of teaching the girls how to play instruments and sing. He wrote many pieces of music for the girls to perform in concerts. The concerts at the orphanage were famous, and many people came from all over to hear the music. In addition to composing for the girls at the orphanage, Vivaldi also wrote music for other performances. He wrote operas, sacred music, and orchestral works. His music was often performed in Venice and other cities across Europe. During his lifetime, Vivaldi was known as one of the greatest composers in Italy. However, despite his success, Vivaldi did not make a lot of money. Many of his works were not published during his lifetime, and he did not become rich or famous in the way that some other composers did. As a result, his music was not widely known outside of Italy. After his death, people forgot about his music for many years. It wasn't until the 20th century that people rediscovered his music and started to perform it again. The rediscovery of Vivaldi's music happened largely because of the work of musicologists and performers. These people found old manuscripts of his music and began to study and perform it. Once people heard Vivaldi's music again, they realized how special and unique it was. Today, Vivaldi is considered one of the greatest composers of all time. His music is loved by people all over the world. Many musicians and orchestras perform his music, and it is often heard in concerts on the radio and in movies. The popularity of the Four Seasons has only grown since its rediscovery, and it is now one of the most famous pieces of classical music in the world. Vivaldi's music is enjoyed by listeners of all ages and is often used to teach people about classical music. Musicians also study his compositions to learn about the techniques he used to write music. Vivaldi's work was revolutionary in many ways. He was one of the first composers to write violin concertos in the way that we know them today. Before Vivaldi, most concertos were written for a small group of instruments, but Vivaldi often wrote for a large orchestra and a solo violin. He used the violin in new and exciting ways, making it the star of his concertos. He also used the orchestra to create different textures and effects, making his music sound rich and full. One of the unique aspects of Vivaldi's music is his ability to tell stories through sound. For example, in his Concerto The Storm, he uses fast, dramatic music to represent the power of a thunderstorm. In The Four Seasons, he uses the violin to represent things like birds singing in the spring, the heat of the summer sun, and the cold wind of winter. His music brings these scenes to life in the minds of the listeners. Vivaldi's contributions to music have made him one of the most important figures in classical music history. His music was full of creativity and innovation. He was a master of the violin, and he wrote music that showcased the instrument in new and exciting ways. His ability to write music that was both beautiful and full of energy has made him one of the most beloved composers in the world. Vivaldi's influence on music can still be heard today. Many modern composers have been inspired by his work, and his music continues to be performed in concert halls around the world. Vivaldi's compositions are also a part of music education. Students who learn the violin often study Vivaldi's concertos to develop their skills and understand the history of the violin. Even though Vivaldi lived many years ago, his music still speaks to people today. His compositions continue to be a source of inspiration for musicians and listeners alike. The beauty, energy, and creativity of his music have made it timeless. Vivaldi's music is a reminder of the power of art to connect people across time and place. It shows how music can tell stories, express emotions, and bring people together. Vivaldi's legacy lives on through his music. His works continue to inspire new generations of musicians, and his name will always be remembered as one of the greatest composers in history. Even though he may have faced challenges during his lifetime, Vivaldi's music has endured and continues to be a vital part of the classical music tradition. His influence will never be forgotten, and his music will continue to bring joy to people for many years to come.